breaking point. The Galactic Federation Assembly Hall floated in the neutral zone between star systems, a massive structure of crystalline walls and flowing energy fields. Inside, representatives from 47 different species gathered in their designated sections, each area designed to accommodate the unique needs of its inhabitants. The Matherian delegates floated in tanks of liquid ammonia. The silicon-based Kron rested on beds of heated volcanic rock. The insectoid Vextar hung from specialized perches designed for their six-limbed bodies. At the far end of the hall, in a modest section designed for oxygen-breathing bipeds, sat the human delegation. Ambassador Jonathan Drake stood at the speaking platform, his gray suit looking plain compared to the elaborate robes and bioluminescent displays worn by other species. He was a man in his late 50s, with lines around his eyes that spoke of years spent navigating the complex politics of galactic diplomacy. Behind him sat 3 other humans, all watching the assembly with careful attention. High Chancellor Vorn-ADH of the Galactic Federation raised one of his 4 arms to signal for attention. The ancient being resembled a cross between an octopus and a tree, with bark-like skin and tentacles that moved with surprising grace. His species, the Valorians, had founded the Federation over 12,000 years ago, and they still held the position of first among equals in galactic politics. The Assembly recognizes Ambassador Drake of Earth. Vorn-ADH's voice echoed through the chamber, translated simultaneously into 47 different languages by the hall's neural network. Drake took a breath and began. Honored Chancellor, esteemed delegates. I come before you today to address a matter of grave urgency. The Xenarix Empire has, over the past 18 months, established military outposts in 7 star systems that were legally claimed and colonized by Earth. These systems were registered with the Federation over 30 years ago. Our colonists have built lives there. They have farms, schools, and families. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Xenarix delegation, positioned in the high-gravity section of the hall, remained motionless. They were a powerful species, their bodies covered in thick armor-like scales that had evolved on a world with crushing gravity. Standing nearly 8 feet tall even in the assembly's adjusted gravity, they looked down at the human section with barely concealed contempt. Drake continued, his voice steady. We have filed formal complaints through proper channels. We have requested mediation. We have offered to negotiate territorial boundaries. The Xenarix have responded to every attempt at diplomacy with silence or threats. 2 weeks ago, they declared that all 7 systems now belong to their empire by right of superior force. High Chancellor Vorn-ADH's tentacles swayed thoughtfully. Ambassador Drake, the Federation appreciates Earth's concerns. However, we must consider all perspectives. Commander Zrath of the Xenarix Empire, you may respond. The Xenarix commander rose to his full height, his scales gleaming under the hall's artificial light. His voice came out as a deep rumble that the translation system rendered into standard Federation speech. The systems in question lie within traditional Xenarix expansion corridors that our empire has used for over 2 millennia. The humans are new to galactic civilization, having joined the Federation a mere 75 years ago. They do not understand the historical complexities of territorial claims. Drake felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice calm. With respect, Commander Zrath, historical claims mean nothing when legal claims exist. Earth followed every Federation protocol when we colonized those systems. We filed the proper documentation. We paid the registration fees. We followed the law. Zrath's eyes, which resembled polished obsidian, fixed on Drake. Laws written by species who have never known true strength. The Xenarix Empire has conquered and held territory across this galaxy for thousands of years. We have fought wars that you cannot imagine. We have technologies that your species will not understand for centuries. And now you speak to us of paperwork? The assembly erupted in discussion. Some species voiced support for Earth's legal position. Others, particularly those who had benefited from Xenarix trade agreements, remained silent or spoke in support of the Empire's traditional claims. Drake raised his voice to be heard over the noise. This is not about strength or technology. This is about the rule of law. If the Federation allows territorial claims to be overturned by military force, then what is the purpose of this body? What is the purpose of the laws we all agreed to follow? High Chancellor Vorn-ADH raised multiple arms for silence. The Assembly acknowledges the validity of both positions. We propose forming a committee to study the historical and legal aspects of this dispute. Such a committee will require approximately 18 to 24 months to complete a thorough investigation. Drake stared at the Chancellor in disbelief. 18 months? Chancellor, there are human families living in those systems right now. They are facing intimidation from Xenaric's military forces. We need intervention now, not in 2 years. Vornadich's expression, difficult to read on his alien features, seemed almost apologetic. Ambassador Drake, the Federation must move carefully in such matters. We have maintained peace across the galaxy for millennia through patience and careful deliberation. Your species is young and perhaps does not yet understand the wisdom of taking time to consider all angles. We understand perfectly, Drake said, his voice tight with controlled anger. We understand that Earth is a junior member of this Federation. We understand that our concerns are considered less important than maintaining comfortable relationships with powerful empires like the Xenarics. What we are asking you to understand is that human lives are at stake. Commander Zrath laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Human lives? Your species reproduces so quickly that you have overpopulated your own world. What are a few thousand colonists to a species that numbers in the billions? Drake turned to face the Xenaric's commander directly. Every single life matters to us. Every child, every parent, every individual. That is something your empire clearly does not understand. We understand strength, Zrath replied. We understand power. We understand that in this galaxy, those who are strong take what they wish, and those who are weak learn to accept their place. Your species has much to learn about where you belong in the galactic order. The High Chancellor intervened before Drake could respond. This discussion is becoming unproductive. The Assembly will vote on forming an investigative committee. All in favor? Drake watched as the majority of the Assembly voted in favor of the committee. A few species abstained. Only 2, both minor civilizations with little political power, voted against it. The message was clear. Earth's concerns would be studied, discussed, and ultimately delayed until they became irrelevant. As the session ended, Drake gathered his delegation and left the Assembly Hall. They boarded their small diplomatic shuttle in silence. It was not until they were in transit back to Earth's embassy station that anyone spoke. They're not going to help us, said Maria Torres, Drake's senior aide. She was a woman in her 40s who had spent 20 years in the diplomatic service. The Federation talks about law and order, but when it matters they defer to power. Drake nodded slowly, staring out at the stars passing by the shuttle's viewport. Send a priority message to Earth. Tell them the Federation has refused to intervene. Tell them we're on our own. 3 days later, the news from Aurora Prime reached Earth. Aurora Prime was one of the disputed colonies, a world of vast oceans and archipelagos where 15,000 humans had built a thriving fishing and aquaculture industry. The colony had been there for 28 years. Children had been born there who had never seen Earth. It was home. The Xenaric's military had sent a battle group to Aurora Prime with a simple message: evacuate within 48 hours or face consequences. The colonial governor, a woman named Sarah Chin, had responded by requesting emergency assistance from Earth and the Federation. The Federation's response was that the matter was under committee review. Earth's official response was delayed by the sheer distance involved. Faster-than-light communication existed, but it still took time for messages to travel across the galaxy. The colonists had nowhere to go. Evacuation ships would take weeks to arrive. They had 48 hours. Governor Chin made the only decision she could. She ordered the colonists to stand their ground and hope that the Xenarics were bluffing. They were not bluffing. When the deadline passed, Xenaric's warships opened fire on Aurora Prime's 3 orbital stations. The stations, designed for commerce and research, had no defenses. They were destroyed in minutes. Debris rained down on the planet below, killing hundreds as fragments burned through the atmosphere and impacted populated areas. Then the Xenarics sent ground forces. They landed in the colony's capital city of New Harbor, a settlement of 30,000 people built along a beautiful coastline. The Xenaric soldiers moved through the streets systematically, destroying infrastructure and forcing the human population into designated containment areas. But some colonists resisted. A group of fishermen armed with hunting rifles and improvised explosives attacked the Xenaric's patrol. They managed to damage one armored vehicle before being overwhelmed. The Xenaric's response was immediate and brutal. They declared the entire city a hostile zone and began leveling buildings indiscriminately. The attack lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 1,200 humans were dead. Most were civilians who had been caught in the crossfire or crushed when buildings collapsed. Among the dead were 237 children from the colony's primary school, which had taken a direct hit from a Xenaric's plasma cannon. Images from Aurora Prime spread across human space within hours. News networks showed footage of the burning city, of parents searching through rubble for their children, of makeshift morgues where bodies were laid out in rows. The galaxy watched as humanity mourned. Ambassador Drake returned to the Federation Assembly 3 days after the Aurora Prime massacre. He carried with him a data pad containing the names of every person who had died. As he entered the hall, he noticed that many delegations looked uncomfortable. Some would not meet his eyes. The Xenarix delegation sat in their section, showing no sign of remorse. Drake approached the speaking platform. High Chancellor Vornadiach acknowledged him with a gesture. Ambassador Drake, the Federation has received your petition for an emergency session. We are prepared to hear your statement. Drake looked around the assembly hall at all the alien faces, at all the species who had stood by and done nothing while humans died. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear. I came here 3 days ago and asked for help. I asked for the law to be enforced. I asked for protection for human lives. This assembly voted to form a committee that would study the issue for 2 years. Yesterday, 1,200 of my people died. 237 of them were children. They died because this Federation values procedure over protection. They died because you were all too comfortable, too concerned with maintaining relationships with powerful empires, to actually enforce your own laws. The hall was completely silent. Drake continued. I have been instructed by my government to deliver the following message. Earth hereby withdraws from all Federation committees and councils. We will maintain our embassy for purposes of basic communication, but we will no longer participate in your assemblies. We will no longer seek your permission for our actions. We will no longer pretend that this Federation represents anything other than the will of its most powerful members. Commander Zrath rose from his seat. Ambassador Drake, your species makes a grave mistake. Without Federation protection, Earth stands alone. The galaxy is a dangerous place for those without allies. Drake turned to face the Xenarix commander. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Something cold and hard that made several nearby delegates unconsciously move back. Commander Zrath, my people have survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and the near extinction of our species multiple times. We have fought and clawed our way from caves to the stars without any help from this Federation. We will remember what happened at Aurora Prime. We will remember every name on this list. And we will ensure that nothing like this ever happens to humanity again. He placed the data pad on the speaking platform and walked out of the assembly hall. The human delegation followed him. They did not look back. Within hours, every human diplomatic mission across the galaxy received the same message. Maintain minimal presence, gather intelligence, and wait for further instructions. Across human space, from Earth to the furthest colonies, a strange silence descended. Human ships stopped broadcasting on open frequencies. Human traders ceased operations. Human scientific expeditions returned to their home systems. The galaxy noticed. For 75 years, humanity had been the newcomers, eager to learn, eager to trade, eager to participate in galactic civilization. Now they were silent. Their systems became dark spots on the galactic communication network. Ships that entered human space reported being monitored but not contacted. It was as if humanity had simply withdrawn from the galaxy entirely. The Xenarix Empire interpreted this silence as surrender. Commander Zrath issued a statement claiming that the humans had finally learned their place in the galactic order. The Xenarix began planning to expand into additional systems that bordered human territory. After all, if the Federation would not stop them from taking 7 systems, why would anyone stop them from taking more? What the galaxy did not know, what even the Federation's extensive intelligence networks failed to detect, was that Earth had not surrendered. Humanity had not withdrawn in defeat. They had withdrawn to prepare. In shipyards hidden throughout the Sol system, construction began on vessels unlike anything the galaxy had seen. In research facilities deep underground, scientists worked on technologies that had been theoretical until now. In military academies across Earth and her colonies, a new generation of officers studied tactics that no galactic civilization would recognize. Earth was not hiding. Earth was sharpening its claws. And when humanity finally broke its silence, the galaxy would learn a truth that had been forgotten over millennia of peace. The most dangerous predator is not the one that roars the loudest, but the one that hunts in silence. The memorial service for the victims of Aurora Prime was broadcast across human space. 1,200 names were read aloud, each one followed by a moment of silence. When the last name was spoken, the Earth's president addressed humanity with a simple message. We will remember. We will never forget. And we will ensure that no one ever makes the mistake of believing human mercy is human weakness. In the darkness between stars, human ships began to move. The storm was gathering, and soon it would break with a fury the galaxy had never imagined possible. The storm unleashed. The Xenarix Empire celebrated their victory over the humans with traditional ceremonies of conquest. On their homeworld of Xenarix Prime, a planet where gravity crushed down with 3 times Earth's force, Commander Xrath stood before the Emperor's court and recounted the tale of how the weak humans had fled before Xenarix's might. The Emperor, an ancient being whose scales had turned silver with age, granted Xrath the title of Breaker of the Weak, and awarded him governorship over all the newly claimed territories. Xrath wasted no time consolidating his gains. He ordered the construction of military outposts in all 7 disputed systems. He sent additional battle groups to the borders of human space, testing to see if there would be any response. There was none. The human colonies remained silent, their ships staying close to their worlds, their communications channels dark. To Xrath, this confirmed everything he believed about humanity. They were a young species that had learned a harsh lesson about power. 6 weeks after the Aurora Prime massacre, Xrath stood in the command center of his new flagship, the Dominion's Fist. The massive warship hung in orbit above the colony world of New Hebron, another disputed system that the Xenarix had claimed. Below, human colonists were being relocated to designated zones while Xenarix workers began extracting the valuable minerals that had attracted human settlement in the first place. "Commander, we're detecting unusual readings," reported his sensor officer, a younger Xenarix warrior named Krell. Xrath looked up from the strategic display he had been studying. Unusual how? Brief fluctuations in the hyperspace boundary layers. They appeared simultaneously in 17 locations across the system, lasted approximately 3 seconds, then vanished. "I've never seen anything like it." Xrath frowned. Pirates sometimes use outdated jump drives that create sensor ghosts. Increase patrols and... Every alarm on the ship began screaming at once. The main view screen erupted with targeting warnings as dozens of ships suddenly appeared throughout the system. Not near the planet. Not at the system's edge where ships normally emerged from hyperspace. They appeared everywhere at once, scattered across the entire star system in a pattern that should have been impossible. "Battle stations." Xrath roared. "Identify those vessels." Krell's claws flew across his console. "Commander, I'm reading 43 ships. Configuration is unknown. Energy signatures are... They're human, sir. They're all human vessels." Xrath stared at the tactical display in disbelief. According to every intelligence report, every spy network analysis, every diplomatic assessment, Earth possessed perhaps 20 major warships. Yet his sensors were clearly showing more than twice that number, and their energy signatures suggested power outputs far beyond what human technology should be capable of. "Open a communication channel," Xrath ordered. "Let's see what these humans think they're doing." Before the channel could be established, the human ships opened fire. But they did not fire on Xrath's flagship or the other Xenarix warships in orbit. Instead, their weapons targeted the military outposts that the Xenarix had spent 6 weeks constructing. Brilliant lances of light, impossibly focused particle beams, struck each installation with surgical precision. The outposts, designed to withstand orbital bombardment, simply ceased to exist. No explosions. No debris. They were there one moment and gone the next, as if they had been erased from reality. "Return fire," Xrath commanded. "All ships engage the enemy." The Xenarix battle group consisted of 12 heavy cruisers, ships that had conquered dozens of worlds over the centuries. They were equipped with plasma cannons capable of melting through mountain ranges, gravity missiles that could crack planetary crusts, and shields that could absorb enough energy to power a small city. They had never been defeated in direct combat. The human ships moved. Not with the ponderous acceleration of typical warships, but with an agility that seemed to defy physics. They scattered across the system like schools of fish evading a predator, each one moving in what appeared to be random patterns but somehow never colliding or interfering with each other's firing solutions. The Xenarix opened fire with their plasma cannons. The superheated bolts of energy that should have obliterated the human vessels passed through empty space. The humans had already moved. Gravity missiles that bent space itself to track their targets found themselves pursuing ships that could turn at angles that should have torn them apart from the G-forces alone. And then the human ships began their counterattack in earnest. Weapons that no galactic database could identify unleashed devastation on the Xenarix fleet. One human destroyer fired what appeared to be a simple projectile. It struck a Xenarix cruiser's shields and kept going, passing through the energy barrier as if it wasn't there. The projectile struck the cruiser's hull and detonated. The ship broke in half, both sections trailing atmosphere and debris. Another human vessel launched a spread of missiles that split into hundreds of smaller warheads mid-flight. They swarmed a Xenaric's heavy cruiser like insects, each one finding gaps in the ship's armor and burrowing deep before exploding. The cruiser's reactor went critical, creating a brief new sun in the darkness of space. Xrath watched in growing horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled. The humans fought with a precision and ruthlessness that was completely unlike the civilized warfare practiced by galactic species. There were no warnings, no demands for surrender, no pauses to allow disabled ships to evacuate. The human ships simply destroyed every Xenaric's vessel they encountered with cold efficiency. Retreat. Xrath finally ordered. All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace. 3 of his cruisers managed to escape. 9 others were destroyed before they could charge their jump drives. Xrath's flagship, the Dominion's Fist, was one of the vessels that escaped. As it fled into hyperspace, Xrath took one last look at the tactical display. The human ships were not pursuing. Instead, they had moved into orbit around New Hebron and were broadcasting a message to the colonists below. The attack on New Hebron was not an isolated incident. Across all 7 disputed systems, human fleets appeared simultaneously. The Xenaric's had stationed approximately 140 warships across these territories, confident that such a force would be more than sufficient to hold what they had taken. Within 6 hours, only 19 Xenaric ships remained operational, and they were all in full retreat. But the human operation did not stop with reclaiming the disputed systems. As Xenaric's commanders scrambled to understand what was happening, human ships began appearing in the heart of the Xenaric's empire itself. They struck military installations on 12 different worlds, destroying orbital defense platforms, weapons foundries, and fleet assembly yards. The attacks were coordinated with impossible precision. Every target was destroyed completely. No Xenaric's forces were given the opportunity to mount an organized defense. The Empire's military leadership tried to respond. They redirected their fleets, called in reserves, and activated defense protocols that had not been used in centuries. But the human ships seemed to know exactly where Xenaric's forces would be and where they would not. They struck at the gaps in the Empire's defenses with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel, always hitting targets that were either undefended or too lightly defended to mount effective resistance. On Xenaric's Prime, the Emperor convened an emergency war council. Military commanders, intelligence officers, and scientific advisors gathered in the ancient fortress that had served as the seat of Xenaric's power for 5,000 years. Commander Xrath, who had barely escaped the disaster at New Hebron, stood before them and delivered his report. The humans possess military capabilities far beyond what our intelligence suggested, Xrath said, his voice steady despite the shame he felt. Their ships are faster, more maneuverable, and carry weapons we have never encountered. Their tactics are unlike anything in galactic military doctrine. They strike without warning, show no mercy, and do not follow any recognized rules of engagement. The Emperor's ancient eyes studied Xrath carefully. How many ships do they have? Unknown, Your Majesty. We have confirmed engagements with over 200 human vessels, but there may be more. They appear to have developed some form of advanced stealth technology that makes them invisible to our sensors until they choose to reveal themselves. General Krax, the Emperor's senior military advisor, spoke up. 200 ships could not have been built in 6 weeks. The humans must have been constructing this fleet in secret for years, possibly decades. While they sat in Federation assemblies and spoke of peace and law, they were preparing for war. Then they lied to the Federation, another advisor said. They presented themselves as a peaceful species while secretly building a military force. This violates multiple Federation treaties. The Emperor's scales rippled, a sign of deep thought among the Xenaric's. It matters little what the Federation thinks now. What matters is that we have provoked an enemy we did not understand. General Krax, what are our options? Krax manipulated a holographic display, showing the current disposition of Xenaric's military forces. We have approximately 800 warships still operational across the Empire. If we concentrate our forces and engage the humans in direct fleet action, our superior numbers should prevail. Should? The Emperor asked. The human ships have technological advantages we do not fully understand, Krax admitted. Their weapons penetrate our shields. Their ships move in ways that our targeting systems cannot track. And they fight with a level of aggression that is unsettling. Galactic warfare is typically conducted according to established protocols. Fleets meet in open space, exchange fire at designated ranges, and one side eventually withdraws. The humans do not follow these protocols. They ambush. They strike from unexpected angles. They target support vessels and supply lines. It is as if they are fighting a completely different kind of war. Zrath spoke up again. Your Majesty, I believe the humans are indeed fighting a different kind of war. I have studied their historical databases. Before they joined the Federation, humans spent 10,000 years fighting each other. They developed concepts of warfare that we have never needed. Total war. Unrestricted warfare. The complete mobilization of an entire civilization's resources toward the destruction of an enemy. This is what they are doing now. The chamber fell silent. The concept of total war was alien to most galactic civilizations. Wars were fought for specific objectives: territory, resources, political concessions. Once the objective was achieved or became unachievable, the war ended. Civilized species did not fight to completely destroy their enemies because the cost of such warfare was too high and the benefits too uncertain. But humans, it seemed, played by different rules. The Emperor made his decision. Send a message to the human government. Offer negotiations. We will return the disputed systems and pay reparations for Aurora Prime. End this before it escalates further. The message was sent through multiple channels, including direct communication to Earth's embassy station and broadcast on open frequencies that human ships would certainly be monitoring. It was a generous offer by any standard. The Xenarix Empire was offering to give the humans everything they had originally asked for, plus additional compensation for the tragedy at Aurora Prime. The response came 12 hours later. It was not a diplomatic message. It was not a negotiation. It was a simple statement broadcast across every communication frequency in the galaxy. To the Xenarix Empire and all who witnessed this message, you killed 1,200 of our people. You murdered 237 children. You believed that humanity would accept this because we are young and weak. You were wrong. The disputed systems have been reclaimed. Your military installations have been destroyed. This is not a negotiation. This is a reckoning. You will surrender unconditionally or you will be destroyed completely. You have 72 hours to respond. The message was signed by Admiral James Harrison, Supreme Commander of Earth's combined fleet. The galaxy had never heard of Admiral Harrison because Earth had never mentioned having a Supreme Commander of anything. The revelation sent shockwaves through the Galactic Federation. The Xenarix Emperor's response was defiant. He ordered his remaining forces to assemble at the Outer Reach, a region of space near the Empire's core worlds where natural stellar phenomena would interfere with the human sensor and stealth advantages. 800 Xenarix warships gathered there, forming the largest battle fleet the Empire had assembled in over 1,000 years. General Krax took personal command. The plan was simple: force the humans into a direct confrontation where superior numbers would prevail. The human response to this massing of forces was not what anyone expected. They did not send their fleet to engage the Xenarix at the Outer Reach. Instead, a single human ship appeared in orbit above Xenarix Prime itself. It was a vessel unlike any that had been seen before. Massive, easily 3 times the size of the largest Xenarix battleship, it hung in space like a dark omen. Its hull was a deep black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No weapons were visible on its surface, but sensor readings suggested it carried enough firepower to level a continent. Every defense installation on Xenarix Prime activated. Planetary shields, capable of protecting the world from asteroid impacts and orbital bombardment, flickered to life. Ground-based weapons platforms swiveled to target the human vessel. Automated defense satellites moved into position. If the human ship fired, it would face enough return fire to vaporize a small moon. The ship's communication system activated. Admiral Harrison's face appeared on every screen across Xenarix Prime, broadcast through channels that the planet's technicians could not block. I am Admiral James Harrison of Earth's combined fleet. Your Emperor has 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. If he refuses, this ship will demonstrate what happens when you mistake human patience for human weakness. This demonstration will be visible from every Xenarix world in your empire. You have been warned. The message ended. The ship remained in orbit, silent and waiting. On Xenarix Prime, panic began to spread. The Emperor called emergency sessions with his advisors. Military strategists ran calculations on whether their planetary defenses could destroy the human ship before it could attack. The consensus was uncertain. The ship's capabilities were unknown. It might be destroyed by the first salvo, or it might shrug off the attack and respond with devastating force. General Krax sent an urgent message from the Outer Reach. He requested permission to bring the fleet back to defend the homeworld. The Emperor denied the request. Moving 800 ships across the Empire would take days. The humans had given them 72 hours, but there was no guarantee they would wait that long. The Emperor made one final attempt at negotiation. He sent a personal message to Admiral Harrison, offering not just the return of disputed territories and reparations, but also offering to cede additional systems to humanity as a gesture of goodwill. He proposed a formal alliance between the Xenarix Empire and Earth. He offered technology transfers and trade agreements that would benefit both civilizations. Admiral Harrison's response was brief. The time for negotiation ended when your forces fired on Aurora Prime. You have 56 hours remaining. As the deadline approached, the tension across the galaxy became unbearable. The Galactic Federation sent delegations to both sides, begging for restraint. Other species watched with a mixture of fear and fascination. Some quietly began recalculating their own military assessments of humanity. If Earth could bring the mighty Xenarix Empire to its knees in a matter of weeks, what did that mean for the rest of the galaxy? With 12 hours remaining before the deadline, the Emperor of the Xenarix Empire made his final decision. He appeared on galactic broadcasts, his silver scales seeming to have dulled overnight. He was a being who had ruled for 300 years, who had never known defeat, who had expanded his empire to encompass 47 star systems. And now he spoke words that no Xenarix Emperor had ever spoken before. On behalf of the Xenarix Empire, I offer unconditional surrender to Earth. We acknowledge full responsibility for the attack on Aurora Prime. We will withdraw from all disputed territories immediately. We will pay any reparations that Earth demands. We will submit to any terms that humanity requires. We ask only that you show mercy to our people, who were following the orders of their leaders. The massive human ship in orbit above Xenarix Prime remained silent for several minutes after the Emperor's broadcast. Then Admiral Harrison's voice came through once more. Your surrender is accepted. All Xenarix military forces will stand down immediately. Your fleets will return to your home systems and remain there. You will provide Earth with complete access to all intelligence regarding your military capabilities and deployments. You will establish a memorial on Xenarix Prime dedicated to the victims of Aurora Prime, and your people will maintain that memorial in perpetuity. You will understand that any future aggression against humanity or our allies will result in the complete destruction of your civilization. These terms are not negotiable. The Emperor agreed to all terms without hesitation. Within hours, Xenarix warships across the galaxy began standing down and returning to their home systems. The 800 ships assembled at the outer reach dispersed without firing a shot. The occupation forces in the disputed systems evacuated so quickly that they left behind equipment and supplies in their haste to depart. The human fleet, which had seemed to be everywhere at once during the conflict, began to withdraw as well. But they did not disappear entirely. Human ships remained stationed in the reclaimed systems, and scout vessels appeared periodically throughout Xenarix space, making it clear that Earth was watching. The memorial on Xenarix Prime was completed within 3 months. It was a simple structure of white stone, designed by human architects and built by Xenarix workers. On its walls were carved the names of all 1,200 victims of Aurora Prime. At its center was a reflecting pool, and above the pool hung a statue, a human child reaching toward the stars. The inscription beneath the statue was written in both human languages and Xenarix script. They dreamed of stars and found death. We remember them. We will never forget. And we will ensure that no one ever again makes the mistake of believing that human mercy is human weakness. The Galactic Federation held an emergency session 1 month after the Xenarix surrender. Ambassador Drake returned to the assembly hall, though he did not take his usual seat. Instead, he stood at the speaking platform while the High Chancellor and hundreds of delegates looked down at him with expressions ranging from fear to respect to carefully concealed terror. High Chancellor Vornadiage spoke first. Ambassador Drake, the Federation wishes to welcome Earth back to full participation in our deliberations. We recognize that grave mistakes were made in how we handled the Aurora Prime crisis. We are prepared to offer Earth a permanent seat on the Security Council and... Drake raised his hand, cutting off the ancient Valerian mid-sentence. Several delegates gasped at the breach of protocol, but no one objected. High Chancellor, Earth is not interested in a seat on your Security Council. We are not interested in your committees or your deliberations. We learned a valuable lesson from Aurora Prime and the Federation's response to it. We learned that in this galaxy, justice belongs to those who are strong enough to enforce it. We learned that laws mean nothing when those who break them are more valuable to you than those who uphold them. Ambassador, please understand, Vornadiage began. No, Drake interrupted again. You understand. Earth will maintain diplomatic relations with the Federation and its member species. We will honor the treaties that serve our interests. We will participate in trade and cultural exchanges. But we will never again trust the Federation to protect human lives or human interests. From this day forward, humanity stands ready to defend itself, and we will show no mercy to those who threaten us or our allies." He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "The Xenarix Empire learned what happens when you mistake human patience for human weakness. They learned that we do not fight civilized wars with limited objectives and negotiated settlements. When you threaten our children, when you kill our people and expect us to simply accept it because we are young and weak, you discover that humanity remembers every lesson our bloody history taught us." The assembly hall was completely silent. Drake looked around at all the alien faces, seeing fear in many of them now. Good, he thought. Let them be afraid. Let them understand that humanity would no longer be dismissed or ignored. "Earth's message to the galaxy is simple," Drake concluded. "Leave us alone and we will leave you alone. Trade with us fairly and we will trade fairly in return. Respect our sovereignty and we will respect yours. But threaten us, attack us, or make the mistake of thinking we are weak because we prefer peace, and you will learn why humanity survived 10,000 years of evolution on a world that tried to kill us every single day." Drake gathered his materials and left the assembly hall. This time, every delegate watched him go in silence. The young species from the small blue world had just announced that they would no longer play by the rules that had governed the galaxy for millennia. The galaxy had fallen silent when Earth withdrew after Aurora Prime. Now it remained silent for a different reason. Every species was recalculating, reassessing, and asking the same question. If humans could do this to the Xenarix Empire, what could they do to us? On Earth, in the military command center beneath Cheyenne Mountain, Admiral Harrison deactivated the holographic display showing Xenarix Prime and turned to his staff. "Begin Phase 2, he ordered. "Start reaching out to other species that have been bullied or oppressed by the stronger empires. Offer them protection. Offer them technology. Build alliances with those who understand that the old order is ending." A new age was dawning in the galaxy. An age where humanity would no longer be the young, weak species that others could dismiss or exploit. An age where Earth would stand as a power that demanded respect. And across the stars, in every system where humans had died, memorials stood as silent reminders of what happened when anyone made the fatal mistake of threatening humanity's future. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The storm had broken with brutal fury, and in its wake, nothing would ever be the same again.